Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. This video might seem delayed to a lot of people, but I feel like I'm doing it at exactly the right time for the amount of time that I needed to be able to talk about it and also be able to come at it from a more balanced and possibly not positive necessarily, but yeah, to come at it from an angle where the trauma has settled a little bit. On the 5th of February 2022 started off like a fun horsey day out for me. I had taken Ozzy to a show jumping training day in Dardanup, and we had done it extremely early because we knew that it was going to be excruciatingly hot. So I had just finished settling Ozzy in at the farm where he lives and unloading all the horse gear and things like that, and I'd come home to have lunch. And we were partway through having that when I got a message from my parents. My dad is a volunteer firefighter and they had heard of a bushfire that had broken out in the Hester Cascades area, which is our area. So we had started getting things together before they had even actually put out the official emergency warning to Hester residents to actually leave the area and that we were at risk, and I'm grateful for those few extra minutes because time went so fast. Our plan is always to prioritise the life of our animals. We'd fitted most of that into Russell's vehicle, my husband. I had, a little bit of room left in my vehicle, so I grabbed one guitar. And I also prioritised grabbing my pedal board case. It was a bit of a blur, honestly. It happened so fast, and if there's anything that people take out of this, it's that even when there's a plan in place, you've got to be prepared to adapt really quickly because the winds were horrendous and it was just travelling at an astronomical speed and there wasn't time. I'd always planned to get basically my work gear being enough for me to be able to continue doing shows if we were to lose everything else. But one, there wasn't time, two, there wasn't room. And then from there I needed to go to the farm because my dad had at that stage gone out to start helping fight the fires, and my mum is disabled. She can't get around very easily on her own and she can't drive. So I started prepping her and their small animals to get off of their property because the farm is not far away. So once Mum was organised and Dad had then swung back home to take her to a friend's place, then it was kind of too late to get the horses out. So my next best plan was I wanted to stay, but my dad wasn't going to allow that to happen, and leaving my horses with just like I put name tags in their manes just in case, with my contact details and things like that. And I've actually also heard you can use a white marker or something like that to write on their hooves as well in those circumstances. But it was absolute yeah. I'll leave it at that. It was very traumatic. There was chaos everywhere, and I actually, I might not have been thinking clearly. I warrant that I was under a lot of stress, and I thought it would be a feasible idea to see if I could get back to our place to prep a bit more and to hopefully fit a bit more gear in, because I'd obviously offloaded some in town where Russell was staying with animals, so I had room in my vehicle. But by the time I got back here to our home, the fire was already in, like there were already spot fires in the timber mill that we have opposite, and the bush on the other side of that was already fully ablaze. And even before I got out of the car, I could feel how intense the heat was, and I had resolved myself at that point that it was too late, but I had to see what I could do. And as I pulled into our driveway, I also saw there was some kangaroos up the top, and one appeared to be stuck. So I knew I had to at least sort that situation out before I was to get out, because it was a little joey that had gotten tangled in some wire up the top of our block, and the doe was there waiting for her baby. So I all I had to do was just flatten the wire out, and she was able to, he, I didn't see what the joey was, what sex, was able to actually get their leg free and all of them flee. So I then opened all the gates on the property just in case there was more coming through, to make sure that it was less chance of any wildlife getting caught up as they were fleeing. And I filled up water everywhere that I could for wildlife, and also inside the house. And I kind of quickly said goodbye. It was unreal. The house was groaning like an old ship, is the best way that I've been able to describe it, just from the intense heat that it was already dealing with. I just got in the car and got out of there and went back to Russell in town, and then continued on one of the most horrible nights we've ever had.
An inferno opens up in the tiny town's centre. Flames taller than trees erupting from a timber yard. A fuel load so large it's like a bomb waiting to explode.
So where we stayed in town, our friend's place, and they'd actually gone out of town for the day, and so they weren't able to get back in because of the fires anyway. And I'm just so grateful to them that they let us stay there. So our cats were locked up in the laundry, and very quiet. They were obviously knew something was going on. Our chickens were happy in their travel cage, but then the landlord and lady had actually offered for ours to go in with theirs. It worked out quite nicely for them to go in there, so they were happy. And then Wilson was obviously very distressed, our dog, because he knew, they pick up on our energy as well. We didn't sleep. I mean, you can't. We had no power for most of the night, and finally got some mobile range back to update our friends and family and that on how we were going. And not long after that, I also got an update from Dad, who had been in the Hester area trying to defend the homes. They had been told they needed to leave because of a gas bullet at the timber mill. He did the right thing, getting out of there when he was told to. But yeah, he said that he had to leave. Sorry he couldn't stay and defend, and that it also didn't look good for the homes, including ours, and that he was really sorry. And again, that's not like my dad. He'd also notified me that it was heading for the farm, and yes, obviously I was very distressed, because all the things you think you could have done better, and yeah. Anyway, it was a really, really horrible night. So I've just got this short video to give you some idea what it was like. I was sent a lot of short videos from people came the morning and, you know, small community, everyone knows everyone. And I actually used to give guitar lessons to the fire chief's, one of the fire chief's daughters. So he had done a quick drive-by because he had to assess the situation anyway. And he'd notified his wife to let us know that our house was still standing. So we were blown away. And Dad had also made it home to the farm, and he had said that the farm was safe at that stage, but that he didn't have time to tend to the horses because he had like 3 hours sleep or something, and then he had to get back out to, because the fire was obviously still burning and heading and threatening other homes and lives and things like that. So then my next mission was, right, I have to get out to the farm somehow. All of the main access roads are blocked, but I, having local knowledge, knew of some other ways that I could go, and I managed to get through in one of those routes. Later on, when I told Russell, when I could have done with his help, and I told him to follow the same way, he couldn't get through. They'd blocked it off, but I promised that I was safe as I was. The fire wasn't in that area, that's why I knew that that road was safe to go through. When I got there, the horses were very distressed, obviously. They would have been, before I left the farm, you could hear the fire and you could see that massive red glow of just the flames way above the treetops. Anyway, so they would have been watching that all night and had showering embers. I'd found charred bits of bark and leaves and things like that that had fallen in their paddocks. So my first call was to just try and give them a bit of routine, a bit of normalcy amongst the chaos. Just try my best to reassure them that everything was okay. I had some beautiful people offer during that morning that if I wanted to try to get the horses out of the property, that they were willing to come and help me so that I could do it in one trip, which was just really, really beautiful. So at one point during that day, on the Sunday, I'd actually managed to get out to our property too and see with my own 2 eyes that our property was unscathed. Like, it is unreal. So obviously I and everyone else just owes the DFS and volunteer firefighters and everyone so much for saving. There was one house lost in those fires. Like, that is just unfathomable. They did an amazing job. And whilst there was, of course, a lot of wildlife lost as well and some stock, I was heartened to see things like we had frogs get into our house to stay safe from the heat because I'd filled up basins and baths and stuff like that with water, so they'd just come in as this beautiful haven to stay safe, which I really loved. And we've got a resident roo, as we call him. He's a big buck, and he loves to come and hang out in our front yard. And this is jumping ahead a little bit, but after we moved back home, I did see that he was back. He was drinking out of our bird bath and lounging around under the shade of our shrubs and eating our grass, and it was just really heartwarming to see that, you know, some of them survived. So after our initial rejoicing that we still had everything, we then found out that due to the treated timber across the road from where we live that had the ash that had fallen, some of it contained arsenic and some other harmful chemicals, so the whole Hester town site became a biohazard zone, which meant we weren't allowed to go home. It wasn't safe. 2 weeks after the fires, we were able to move everyone back home. Now here we are over a month later. All the animals are settled again. As I say, we've got our resident roo back enjoying our grass and things like that. I've been doing some hay dumps out in the bush as well for hay that's appropriate to be taking out there, just in case there's bound to be a food shortage at the moment for wildlife, given they've all been the survivors have been compressed into a smaller area. And I've been paying attention to the beautiful conservation forest that, you know, I've been grieving for. It's hard to see something you love destroyed like that. But the resilience of nature is beautiful. And I've been out there, and like, it didn't take long for the grass trees to start growing again already, and the marri trees have new shoots out there, and I found a bull ant nest, which might not sound much to people, but you know, there's survivors out there. And the forest is slowly coming back to life. There are parts of it that are still burning and will be right up until we get the breaker season and we get a few consecutive heavy downfalls. So obviously I feel for the losses that there were, the wildlife, the stock, the historical golf club building. Someone lost their house, people lost sheds, somebody's still in hospital with severe burns. My heart goes out to everyone that's feeling the loss, but for us, I'm feeling, you know, more positive. We were all so lucky. Could have been so much worse. All in all, the healing has certainly begun for us, and I can see the healing taking place out there in the forest as well. And yeah, even the people I know are as resilient as the Australian forest as well, and will heal and will bounce back from this.